This hearing will come to order. Everyone, a good afternoon, and I want to welcome everyone to today's subcommittee hearing on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA's FY09 budget request and GAO's report on aviation weather services. NOAA is an important agency that provides our citizens with warnings of severe weather, guides the management of our ocean and coastal resources, and conducts research to improve our understanding of the environment. NOAA is a diverse agency with many important missions and responsibilities. However, issuing watches and warnings of severe storms may be the role for which NOAA is the most famous. I know that in Texas we appreciate their services because we experience severe storms every year in the form of tornadoes and hurricanes. The watches, warnings, and forecasts issued by the National Hurricane Center and the local forecasting offices of the National Weather Service contain vital public information, public safety information. Partnership between the National Weather Service, the media, and the local emergency management community is essential to protect lives and property damage associated with these storms. Accurate prediction of hurricanes and other severe storms and sound management of our ocean and coastal resources can only be achieved through sound investments in the personnel, equipment, and research of NOAA at NOAA. There are some encouraging features of the fiscal year 2009 budget request for NOAA. For the first time in years, the President has requested an increase for this agency over the current year's funding level. This is certainly a step in the right direction. We're pleased to see additional funds requested to restore some climate sensors and to upgrade a variety of models, technology, and software systems. However, I believe the administration's budget proposal still lacks the level of funding needed for this agency to truly fulfill all of its diverse missions. If NOAA is to continue to provide the array of services we need, if it is to advance its capabilities to forecast the weather and our understanding of the oceans and the atmosphere, if we are to restore our fisheries and coastal ecosystems to a productive and healthy state, we must invest additional funds in this agency. The committee will continue to follow closely the procurements for the new polar and geostationary weather satellite systems. It is essential that we have these new systems completed and delivered in time to avoid any gaps in coverage of weather data. With respect to the new geostationary satellite program, GOES-R, I believe the agency has acted upon the recommendations of the GAO and the experience of the INPOS program in a manner that is moving this procurement in the right direction. I remain concerned about the status of the INPOS program. A key instrument, VEERS, is still not completed, and the schedule for launching the preparatory mission is once again delayed. Costs for the new satellite systems have grown well beyond any recognized figure for inflation. We're going to have to address this for the long term, and we have become more dependent upon satellite information for forecasting, observing, and understanding climate and weather phenomena. The needs are growing, but the budgets are not expanding to provide the additional funds necessary to accommodate these needs. For example, we still don't have plans or budgets in place to accommodate the need for a follow-on operational instrument to replace NASA's QuickSat satellite or for the full suite of climate instruments that were eliminated from the INPOS program. During the second part of today's hearing, GAO will report its findings on the current effort by FAA and NWS to restructure aviation weather forecasting services. 1 year ago, 5 other members of the committee joined me in a request to GAO to review this effort. And as we all know and have personally experienced while traveling by plane, flight delays and cancellations due to inclement weather are an all too common occurrence. And there is more than convenience at stake here. There's a question of safety. Severe storms or rapidly changing conditions can create serious risks for aircraft. It was a tragic, fatal crash in 1977 that led to the formation of the Center Weather Forecast Units that we still have today. FAA and NWS should be working together cooperatively to ensure the smooth, safe flow of air traffic in our nation. We want to ensure that as these agencies evaluate the aviation weather forecasting program, they keep these essential goals in mind. Any restructuring of aviation weather forecasting services must be done in a manner that will ensure, at a minimum, there is no degradation in these services going forward. There are no cost savings or efficiencies to be found by reducing the safety of air travel for the public. I look forward to hearing all of the testimony this afternoon, and as we discuss the administration's budget proposal and the aviation weather services provided by NOAA and FAA. And at this time, I would like to recognize our distinguished ranking member, Mr. Inglis of South Carolina, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this hearing on the President's fiscal year 2009 request for NOAA. The accomplishments that you highlighted in your testimony, Admiral Lautenbacher, are proof that the money Congress spends on science is money well spent, and often its effects go far beyond the laboratory. You won't often hear a conservative happy about spending more money, but it's good to see that the NOAA FY 2009 budget proposal is just as aggressive, if not more so, than last year, and rightfully so. We need to continue to make sure that NOAA has the resources necessary to continue providing the best services possible in hurricane forecasting, climate modeling, coastal research, critical satellite technology, and many other areas that benefit our country and the world. I also look forward to hearing from our second panel witnesses from GAO, the National Weather Service, and the Federal Aviation Administration. I was an original requester on that GAO report on aviation weather because I'm concerned about the ongoing issues between these two agencies. Weather has a significant impact, as the Chairman was just saying, on our flying public, and there have been numerous studies that document the cost of weather delays to the airline industry and to the economy at large. The GAO report and Assistant Administrator Hayes' testimony offer encouraging signs that progress is already underway in achieving agreement between the FAA and the National Weather Service on much-needed performance measures. In the case of Mr. Hayes, I'm especially interested to know whether or not the National Weather Service is prepared to meet the Federal Aviation Administration's recently proposed requirements by the May 2008 deadline, or if more time is necessary. I thank the witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to hearing their testimony, and I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. I ask unanimous consent that all additional opening statements be submitted by the subcommittee members be included in the record. Without objection, so ordered. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first witness this afternoon, Vice Admiral Conrad Lautenbacher, is the Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and Administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Admiral, as always, you will have 5 minutes for your spoken testimony. Your full written testimony will be included in the record for the hearing, and when you have completed your testimony, we will begin with questions, and each member will have 5 minutes to ask those questions, and you begin.
Thank you, Chairman Lamson, Ranking Member Inglis, Congressman Wu, and distinguished staff members. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon. And let me begin by giving you my sincere appreciation from NOAA for your support and interest in our programs. It's only with your help that we're doing as well as we are, so thank you very much. The President's budget supports NOAA's priority to advance mission-critical services. As you mentioned, the request is higher than last year. It's $4.1 billion, and it's $200 million, or 5% increased above the 2008 enacted level. The increases that are there are essentially in areas for satellites, facilities, ocean and fisheries activities. While it's an increased budget, I want to emphasize that it is the minimum that we need to maintain our current level of services and carry out our mission, which is to understand and predict changes in the Earth environment and to conserve and manage coastal, marine, and Great Lakes resources. We've had many notable accomplishments during the past fiscal year. I mentioned some of those in my written testimony. I would like to just mention a couple before we move into the budget. First of all, I'd like to enter for the record how proud we are of the NOAA scientists, the ones who had the special honor, more than 120 of them recognized by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee for their work on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC. Many people in the NOAA family were intimately involved with the work of the IPCC, even beyond the 120 that received recognition. And this international recognition highlights the preeminent science conducted by our agency. Now, in October 2007, a very important one, as you mentioned, weather warnings. The Weather Service began issuing more geographically specific warnings for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, floods, and marine hazards. Basically, these storm-based warnings allowed forecasters to pinpoint the specific area where severe weather threats are the highest. In some cases, this reduced the area warned by 70%. When compared to the previously used county-by-county warning system. We believe this will cut down on the amount of false alarms and improve people's opportunities to understand that it's serious and escape harm from severe weather events. We continue to expand the overall tsunami warning capability in our country. We deployed 14 more deep ocean assessment and reporting buoys, bringing the total stations to 34. In partnership with the government of Indonesia, we also launched a second buoy to warn of approaching tsunamis in that region and 4 buoys to monitor climate. We are now covering the Indian Ocean as well as the Pacific. These buoys are the latest additions to the expanding Global Earth Observation System of Systems, an international effort to monitor and predict changes in the Earth. My written testimony presents details of the budget. Again, let me move on to the 2009 budget. We are requesting almost $931 million in 2009 for the Weather Service, an increase of just over $19 million from 2008. We are requesting restoration of critical core Weather Service accounts that were reduced in the FY 2008 omnibus. These restorations, just over $10 million, include almost $7 million to the local warnings and forecast base and programs. There is about $11 million in the budget to help enhance the NOAA All-Hazard Radio program. As you know, these radios provide crucial information and warnings to the public 24 hours a day. As we saw recently with the outbreak of tornadoes in the Midwest, we must remain vigilant at all times. To enhance our forecasting abilities and ensure consistency, we're requesting a funding increase of $242 million for a total of $477 million to continue support of the next generation geostationary satellite program called GOES-R. These sentinels in the sky provide the images of severe weather you see on TV. This increase will be used for continued systems engineering, development of instruments, and transition to operations and acquisition and operations. We plan to issue the major contracts for space and ground segments early in 2009. This is a critical time for this program, and we need to work to keep it on track. We spend more than $300 million a year for hurricane warning and forecast efforts. In 2009, we will add over $19 million in new increases, providing $5 million for improvements to hurricane forecast and storm surge modeling. $8 million will go towards research in ocean vector wind studies and coastal inundation modeling, and $6 million to help support operations of our hurricane data buoys. In 2009, NOAA will invest more than $319 million on climate-related activities. This is an increase of $85 million over the 2008 enacted. NOAA will support the critical NIDIS system, National Integrated Drought Information System, with increases of $2 million. We are requesting an increase of $74 million for climate sensors that were removed from the NPOS satellite program. The money is specifically for the TSIS and Ceres instruments which measure the Earth's radiation budget. Finally, we have modest new investments in our priority areas, I believe, while maintaining critical services. We will build on the successes from last year. We stand ready to meet the challenges that will surface in 2009. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be present with you this afternoon, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Admiral. Let me start. We'll go into our 5-minute questions, and I'll yield myself the first 5 minutes. As you're well aware, the satellite procurement programs represent a significant proportion of your agency's budget. GAO made the recommendation that the agency obtain independent cost estimates for these programs at the outset. You implemented this recommendation for GOES-R, and we believe that was the right decision. As you now, or are you now confident that the new estimate for GOES-R is realistic and that the technical challenges are manageable?
I believe that we have, it's always hard to say, is this estimate going to be good till the end of the program, but we have created as good a chance as we're ever going to get. We've had several independent looks at it. We've created independent looks outside of the program office. We've had an independent review team come in with experts in the satellite acquisition and management community. We have worked through differences in the original estimates which contractors provided during our risk analysis part of the program, and we have gone to the point where the estimates are within 4% of each other. So we believe that the 7.7 that we have at this point is a very good estimate and well ahead of anywhere where we were in the NPOS program, for instance, at this point of validity of the estimate.
You made the decision to include an option for 2 additional satellites in the GOES-R series, restoring the program closer to the original plans. Obviously, exercising that option would raise the current estimate for the program. Did the independent cost estimation include an estimate for this, and what is NOAA's estimate for these 2 additional satellites?
The independent cost estimate focused on the program of record, which we have submitted in our budget, which is the 2-satellite program. We have some estimates of what the 2 satellites, 2 additional options would cost, but they're not to the degree that of confidence that we have in the first 2 that we have put together. But I believe we have estimates that are pretty good at this point of what it might cost. Obviously, this depends on what contractors will provide to us when they provide their initial bids.
Do you have at least some kind of a concept of what it would be, and is there going to be an opportunity to see if we indeed do choose to go with the option, is it going to significantly lower the cost for all 4 in the event that that's what happens? Can you give me some kind of an indication of what that might?
Yes, sir, and we can provide that. We believe at this point that is probably at this point the most cost-effective option for continuing service for geostationary satellites. But again, we need to make sure that we provide detailed cost-benefit analysis that convinces Congress as well as the administration that this is the best way to go.
Do you have any kind of number, preliminary number at all?
We do have numbers. I don't have them here with me today, but we can provide
if you would do
with
that,
what we do know at this point.
If you would do that, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Can you please explain why, with the level of attention that has been focused on the VIIRS instrument, it's once again responsible for a delay in the launch of the NPOS preparatory project, NPP mission?
The VIIRS instrument has been a technical challenge to build, and it has had, I would say, one problem after another. But each of those problems has been solved. So I have confidence that we are going to solve these problems. It's just taken more than the contractor originally indicated it would take. We have put a schedule in place at this point that I believe gives them more than sufficient time. In fact, they say they can beat the estimate that we're allowing them at this point by several months. They need to prove it to us. But essentially, we are towards the end of building this instrument. We are just about there, and I think we can see the light at the end. We can see more than the light. We can see the end of the tunnel. So I have confidence that we're going to get there, but it's going to be, we're going to slug it out.
What's the estimated date of the launch right now? Do you know that offhand? Or
we are waiting for NASA to give us an estimate on it. We have added about 8 months to the schedule from the VIIRS instrument, and NASA will give us an estimate of what it takes to put that on the NPP, but it will be delayed from 09 to 10. That we can say at this point.
Okay. With the latest launch schedule slip, does the NPP still have any value in its original mission in providing a chance for exercising the new NPOS instruments before they become operational, or is it now serving primarily as a gap filler for the Earth observing instruments on NASA satellites?
It will have use as a mitigation reduction or for risk reduction for the NPOS. It still has, remember, because the date of the NPOS satellite is now 13. So if we can launch this in 10, as we've suggested, it is still going to have value for allowing us for risk reduction for NPOS, and it is needed for continuity of the climate mission as well as a gap filler. It will fill all 3 purposes.
Thank you, sir. And I will now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Inglis, for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Lautenbacher, the President's FY09 budget includes a request for tripling of funds for the hurricane supplemental buoys. How do those work? It's a front, described as a front line for hurricane forecasting. There are 15 of them?
Yes, sir.
Does it bring them to 15?
Yes, this brings it to 15. The money that we've asked for here will allow us to position the last 3 and then provide the operating money. We were unable to get operating money for them, and we believe these need to be maintained. This needs to be a consistent observing system. These buoys are in strategic positions out into the Atlantic and in the Gulf, and they provide an early warning sentinel of precise information on wave heights, wind speeds, critical data that's needed to inform our models and ensure we understand where the hurricanes are going.
Because I guess the question, maybe you've just answered it, is you need money to operate them because if they're 15 out, or going to be 15, there are 3 left to go out. That means that most of the expense, I guess, is in locating them, but maybe some of it is also in operating. Is that?
It is.
Is that why there's a significant increase?
Most of the expense was in building them and locating them. The operating money is significantly less.
Right.
We were fortunate, thanks to Congress in helping us to get supplemental money several years ago to start this program of having these early warning sentinels on station, and we've been successful in doing that. As you say, 12 of the 15 are out there. This finishes the program and allows us to operate them, but they will require a small operating increment every year to keep them going.
How does that compare to the tsunami kind of buoys? Are they the same kind of concept, or?
These are much different buoys than the tsunami buoys. First of all, these are very big, so they're large, more stable platforms. And in fact, during some of the hurricanes that we've had, these buoys have survived. So they're big. The dart buoys, as we call them, are really transmission buoys. They're small. They look a lot like the navigation buoys in the channel that you see. So they're small buoys. They're anchored at the bottom of the ocean as well. And the instrumentation that's on them is basically to take an acoustic signal that comes from the ocean, translate it to an electronic signal, send it up to a satellite and back. So they're an intermediate transmitting point. That's the difference. The weather buoys have weather instrumentation on them as well as transmitting equipment.
Gotcha. So now, the tsunami warning system, when the big tsunami occurred several years ago, a lot of those were not, or were disabled or were not functioning properly, right?
We had 6, well, first of all, they're up and down like any other equipment. They go down and they need to be maintained. We had 6, what I would call experimental buoys in the water at the time. 3 of them were operating, of them 3 weren't at the time of that. But that record could vary anywhere from 3 to 6 fully operational. So we repair them as schedules allow. And
so
now we will have 35 of these.
That was my next question. So we get 35. Is that in the budget request as well? Or?
Yes, sir. And we've doubled up on them. So in the areas that are of concern to our west coast, essentially, and the Aleutians, there are several spots that are doubled. So we are increasing the likelihood that we will have a complete array of buoys operational all year long. The problem being that in the Gulf of Alaska, you have to repair them in the spring and summer, because in the winter it's virtually impossible to do the maintenance on them.
You know, in a science committee stop recently in Australia, I was tremendously impressed by the work you all are doing with the Coral Reef Watch program. Very impressive foreign policy angle there that NOAA has of cooperating with the Australian government and creating goodwill for the U.S. As we help predict coral bleaching and things like that. It's very impressive work that's going on there.
It's an important, we use the satellites to be able to warn for coral bleaching, and we have a strong partnership with the managers of the Great Barrier Marine Reef Park in Australia. It's a very important part of our international scene.
Yeah, it became apparent when we were there. It's very impressive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis, and I recognize Dr. David Wu for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now chair the Technology and Innovation Subcommittee, another subcommittee of this full committee. In the prior incarnation of that subcommittee, I served as ranking member, and we had jurisdiction at that time over NOAA. It is an agency which I respect for the importance of its work, and you all handle a large number of very important tasks. I have today an unfortunate duty to refer back to a prior statute which this committee and the full Congress passed, which requires NOAA to spend 27% of certain tsunami monies on education and mitigation. That was a negotiated number, and some of us wanted a higher percentage on education and mitigation. Then Chairman Sherry Bullard prevailed upon all parties to settle on a 27% number. And as has been said in business negotiations, it was a highly negotiated number. So those of us who were part of that negotiation place great store in spending that 27% on education and mitigation. And the reason why it has very important real-world significance is because while the ocean buoys are important and are important for warning in other parts of the world, we on the Oregon and Washington coast have a 250-mile subduction zone. The Cascadia Fault is locked up, and every 200 to 1,200 years, and on average every 300 years, we have a 9.0 to 9.5 earthquake off our coast, and there will be no warning. The hardware that you all have deployed around the oceans of the globe serve a very important purpose, but those buoys will provide no warning for a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. The only warning that will occur is the earthquake itself. 15 to 30 minutes later, the tsunami will roll ashore. The education money is the part of the program which would benefit the citizens of Oregon, Washington, California, and provide a real service. Now, Mr. Undersecretary, your agency had a clear statutory mandate to allocate 27% of these funds to education mitigation. Can you explain why that number did not come to pass? And my understanding from staff is that it's closer to 8.9% rather than 27% actually being allocated to education and mitigation.
Yes, sir. I think it's a little higher than that, but I don't want to argue about the percentage. Basically, we have had to sort of manage the conflicting requirements of getting a system set up and meeting the percentages, and it's not always worked out as well as we've liked. So as I've looked at it today, we have not met the percentage that's required in the law, and I certainly agree with that, and we need to fix that. And have been sworn to uphold the laws of the country, and I will do that. I was not aware of that particular issue until this morning. But let me just tell you what we have done. First of all, the program itself is a great triumph. The President provided extra money. Congress, where we had zero, we now have $23 million to produce awareness and a system. And we do have money going to mitigation and education. It's not the percentage yet, but we have allocated.
Mr. Undersecretary, just to be clear, the $23 million that you're referring to is for the entire tsunami warning network, and it is 27% of that particular line item that we're talking about, and it's that 27% of that particular line item, the $23 million, that y'all didn't hit. My understanding is that there's 2 point some odd million for education, and at least the arithmetic on this side of the table shows that to be about 8.9% or thereabouts. And you're saying that that shouldn't have happened, and furthermore, you're saying that that won't happen going forward.
I'm saying that I want to take a good look at this. I don't have enough information to sit here and promise the moon, so to speak. What I will tell you, our priority has been to try to get the system going first. We can't get the system.
Mr. Undersecretary, with all due respect, there are times when you all have administrative discretion, but when it's a clear statutory requirement, I mean, this was negotiated in this committee, passed by the entire Congress, and this is not reading between the lines on congressional intent. This is a very clear statutory requirement, and what I took our conversation to mean earlier was that I had a clear commitment that this would be fixed going forward.
Yes, sir, this will be fixed going forward. I thought the question was on 08. I mean, we're talking about what we're trying to do right now at this.
Well, now that I have
the
a
budget
commitment
that's
to
already
fix it.
passed. The budget that's already passed. It's already the year's half gone, that sort of thing.
Well, now that I have a commitment to fixing this going forward, when we come back, we can
Yes, sir.
listen to you further about what might have happened in times past.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I thank the Chairman
And
for...
we have another option to provide money this year too. Okay, from the frequency auction money. We believe that's coming in at the end of in a few months, and we'll be able to use that for the education part. So we have two ways to work at this, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. Ms. Hooley, the gentlelady from Oregon. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to participate in this hearing today. You might be surprised, since both Representative Wu and I are from Oregon, that my question might be very similar to his. But I have a question to ask you. Are you aware of the letter dated January 25th that the state geologists from Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, California sent to the congressional delegates from the Pacific and Northwest coastal states? Are you aware of that letter?
I was not aware until about an hour before this hearing, so
Okay,
I would love to have it referred to me to be able to help work the problem.
Okay, and I will make sure that you get a copy of that letter.
Thank you.
All right. And I just want to know again, and I think I've already heard your commitment that you will fully fund what the statutory requirement is, which is a 27% for the fiscal funds. Okay. Another question is, when were you planning on informing the state geologists of the plan to provide the states with their full 27% share? I had staff speak to our state geologist last Wednesday, and she wasn't aware of any funding plan at this time. When do you expect to tell the state geologists what you're going to do?
And I'm not prepared to answer that today,
Okay.
since I only saw this letter an hour before the hearing, and I'd like
Okay.
to have an opportunity to, I understand I've read the letter, and that there's a dispute on how this is being done in terms of consultation and who makes the decisions, and we will get together and we will provide an answer that I think everybody will like.
Sort of on the same line, and then I'm going to get off onto a different subject, because I think Representative Wu did a good job of asking and you answering the question. There's supposed to be a coordinating committee comprised of federal, state, and local and tribal government agencies to recommend, with some recommendations on this money. Are you aware of that, and are you going to use that coordinated committee, or do you know what's happening there, Admiral?
I don't know why it's not working properly. I can tell from the letter that it's not working properly.
Okay.
And I will look into it personally, and the goal is to make it work in accordance with the legislation.
Next in line is, I want to talk about fisheries, and by the way, thank you very much you were very helpful last year for our fisheries problem, and I appreciate that. In 2005, the commercial salmon fishing season was reduced by 60% due to the poor Chinook salmon to the Klamath River. Again, several of us wrote to NOAA Fisheries asking them to expedite the disaster relief process so a decision and a declaration could be made prior to the appropriation process. At first, there was no response, and then long after the disaster was made apparent, and then you stepped in and helped us out. It looks like this next year is going to be the worst year of all. So I am really concerned about how quickly we can get this process going. And again, it's important for us as we look at appropriations and putting our budget together. And I mean, the Budget Committee is meeting tomorrow, I know, and it will be winding up its business in the next couple of months. So Can you assure us that knowing ahead of time that these are going to be some of the worst salmon runs of all, at least on the Oregon coast, the southern Washington coast, and northern California coast, that you can declare a disaster earlier and quicker than you have in the past so that people can be assured that they're going to get some kind of relief?
We have, we're very well aware of the situation, and we have started work right now to try to get everybody together to ensure that the data can be produced and gotten to us as quickly as possible. And our goal is to try to certainly beat the record that we established 2 years ago and
Okay.
do a much better job this year in
Because
terms
it took
of.
2 years for the checks to get out the door.
I understood.
Yeah.
I understand. I've
And,
alerted
you know,
the administration, and I'm prepared to work as hard as I can
You know,
to,
because the states
get this
have a
out.
lot of information already that I don't think it's necessary to gather that information again. And so I would hope that you would work closely with the states. Anything we can do to help expedite that process, let us know. We want to work with you to make that happen and in a much more timely manner.
I appreciate that, and I look forward to working with you, and we will do our best to meet the needs.
Yeah, just remember their mortgages, their banks don't wait for 2 years for a house payment. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to participate today, and thank you for answering my questions, and looking forward to working with you both on the tsunami and the fisheries issues.
Thank you.
We have actually two series of votes that are coming up. We have two votes and then a 10-minute debate, and then two more votes following that. That'll probably take an hour away from here. So let me quickly ask a couple of questions. We'll be able to dismiss you, Admiral, but if you, the others, the second panel, don't mind being patient and waiting for us, we'll come back and get this done. I see the budget includes a requested increase for ocean vector wind studies. How do these studies relate to the study that NASA was supposed to complete last month for options for replacing the data we now acquire with QuickScat? And given the long lead time for developing new operational satellites and instruments and the need to identify additional resources to finance the acquisition, what's the plan for obtaining these if the QuickScat satellite fails?
This is the issue of continuity of ocean surface vector winds. And first of all, let me say that the basic coverage for hurricane warnings is in our budget. So I want to make sure people understand that we have covered the main satellites and the airplanes, and the radars, the buoys, and everything that provides hurricane warning. So it's all there, and advances are made. Now, in terms of ocean surface vector winds, we have the study. It was just delivered. So right now, we are working through a cost-benefit analysis. We have to find out. We've been given some information from the JPL study, which is they work for NASA, but they work for us in this case to produce that study. So we have that. I've looked at it preliminarily, and I've asked people to get out and to make a really detailed cost-benefit analysis and look at all of the options for ocean surface vector winds. Now, we have two things in place. First of all, the QuickScat is still operating. We have the ASCAT instrument, which is on MEDOP, and that will be operating up till 2020. So that system, while it's not perfect, either is QuickScat. QuickScat is not what our people want. They want something better than QuickScat. We also are looking at I've negotiated with the Indians, and we're looking at the Chinese as well. The Indians are going to launch a satellite with scatterometer on board. So we have ways of getting that information. But in the meantime, we are going to be doing a cost-benefit analysis to see whether this capability can put on an airplane, whether you can put it on another satellite, and before we come and tell you that we need $3 billion for a satellite, I want to make sure that we have every bit of information that can assure you that we've taken the needs of the taxpayer and the cost of this system into place.
Good, thanks. One final question. As you know, a number of my constituents are being impacted by the rule changes being implemented for the red snapper fishery. There are apparently very different views on the current status of this fishery and the real impact of the rules changes on maintaining its long-term viability. Is the agency planning to undertake new studies to reconcile or resolve some of these questions? And how's the information from fishermen in the area incorporated into the decisions about how best to manage the red snapper fishery?
Obviously, we're going to continue what I would call detailed surveys to ensure that we monitor the stocks and the level of stocks and the age of this distribution of the stocks to ensure that the rules that are in place make sense. That will be done continuously and in close cooperation with the Gulf Fishery Management Council. We've asked for more money this year to help get better surveys from the recreational fish part of our part of the industry, because that's an area that is not as detailed as the commercial side. So I believe that when that's in place, that will help us quite a bit to explain the rules that we have and why they're important. And so we plan to have an all-out press in terms of, we also have money for cooperative research in here, which allows us to have fishermen do some of the research for us to make sure that they feel part of the system to which they're subject for regulation. And that'll be another critical part of the red snapper issue in the Gulf, which is a big one.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. English, you get the last word.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, the last year, if I've got this right, for INPOs, you didn't get an appropriation, right, for, and so this year, is a much larger request. It's what, 74 million or something?
That's for the climate sensors.
Climate sensors,
yes.
yes.
We didn't have a plan. I hate to ask
Right.
people for money before I have something I can justify. So we worked with NASA, the White House got NASA and NOAA together, worked together to have a plan. We have the plan, and that's why we're asking for the 74 million for the climate sensors, because we believe we have a justifiable plan that will allow for continuity of the instruments and do it in the most cost-effective way.
So it is just a matter that this year we've got the plan, we're ready to go, and
Yes,
that'll
sir.
make it. And does the 74 million put you on track to accomplish what you hope to accomplish, or?
The 74 million obviously is a down payment, because we will have to continue the program into the future. But that will get us started. We have a program, and we have an option for every one of the sensors that was taken off of NPOs. These are the two that we have to do right now in one way or another. Actually, we have three. We put OMPS limb back on. I don't want to get too technical, but this is the beginning of what I would call a comprehensive program to make sure that all the climate variables that we were unable to accommodate at first, because we need that NPOS satellite up as quickly as possible, we are on track to do that. 74 million we need. We have to get started with this.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thanks,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wu, you had a follow-up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And at this point, I'd like to submit for the record a written statement, and I'd also like to, in addition to making the state geologist letter from Oregon, Washington, and the state of California available, as Ms. Hooley referred to NOAA, I'd also like to submit that letter to the hearing record.
So ordered.
Mr. Undersecretary, I find it a matter of relief that you and NOAA are committed to making this appropriate split going forward, the statutorily required 27% for mitigation and education and other purposes as specified in the statute that we passed in 2006. I do want to point out to you that in the administration's FY09 request, this is going forward now, if even when we back out any funds for deployment of new buoys, the National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program, the program that we specified at 27% of this overall line item, it is slated to be at less than half the statutorily mandated amount. And I just wanted to point that out to you in the forward-going FY09 budget request. Now, the Congress appropriates this money as one unified line item, and in the last fiscal year is $23 million. But I just want to very clearly point out that there's a very clear statutory mandate that 27% be spent on the National Tsunami Hazard Mitigation Program, and that we seem to have at least the beginnings of a problem going forward into FY09. And I want to point that out to you and permit you to address any issues you can in fixing FY08 or before, and also anything further you want to say about FY09.
And we will look, obviously, I have a better chance of fixing '09 than I do fixing '08, but I'm committed to fixing both to the best of my ability.
I just want to point out again, best of one's ability is not the criterion of success. This is a statutory requirement, and this is a black letter law requirement.
Yes, sir. I understand what you're saying. Let me just say for one, it's very difficult to take requirements of a program and deliver something that actually does what it's supposed to do, and then over here have something, well, 5% has to go there, 27% has to go there. Sometimes those don't quite match. But I understand the 27%, and obviously if appropriations and Congress wants the 27%, they're getting 27%.
None of these decisions, yours or ours, are easy, and that's why the taxpayers sent us here, to deal with some of these very difficult issues. And I prefer the first two words of your answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Undersecretary. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Wu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. The meeting, this hearing will stand in recess pending the votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Subcommittee on Energy and Environment is back into session. And I welcome our second panel of witnesses, and thank you very much for your patience. Sorry that I had that interruption. Mr. David Powner is Director of Information Technology Management Issues at the Government Accountability Office. Dr. Jack Hayes is the Assistant Administrator for the National Weather Service at the National Oceanic Administration. Juba is Senior Vice President for Finance for the Air Traffic Organization at the Federal Aviation Administration. We welcome you, gentlemen, and each have 5 minutes to present your spoken testimony. Your written testimony will be included in the record for the hearing. When you complete all of your testimonies, we will begin with questions, and each member will have 5 minutes to question the panel. And Mr. Powner, may begin.
Chairman Lanson, Ranking Member Inglis, we appreciate the opportunity to testify this afternoon on our report on aviation weather services completed at your request. The National Weather Service supports the Federal Aviation Administration by providing aviation-related forecasts and warnings at air traffic control and route centers across the country. These forecasts and warnings include information on thunderstorms, air turbulence, and icing. These services are provided through an interagency agreement that FAA reimburses NWS approximately $12 million annually. Today, as requested, I will summarize our findings and recommendations from our report being released today. Specifically, I will discuss FAA's recent efforts to explore options for enhancing these services, FAA's efforts to convey to NWS its needs, both agencies' efforts to ensure quality and measure performance, and our recommendations for improvements. First, FAA has found through multiple studies over the past several years that the services provided to them are inconsistent, not standardized, and that collaboration between the two agencies has been poor. Given this, FAA has asked NWS to explore options to restructure how it provides services and to reduce the number of locations that provide them. Clearly, FAA is interested in more consistent and improved services and has threatened to use private sector firms and government-funded laboratories instead of NWS if such services could be provided at lower costs. NWS, in response to FAA, has conducted prototypes demonstrating that remote operations are possible and effective, but difficult due to cultural and technological challenges. In April of last year, these exploratory improvement efforts were put on hold while FAA decided to better define the services it wants from NWS. In December, at the conclusion of our review, FAA delivered a comprehensive set of requirements that reiterate existing requirements like daily briefings and weather advisories, and provide new ones like on-demand and new forecasting products. NWS is currently responding to this set of requirements. Turning to quality and performance measurement, our findings here are surprising. While interagency agreements state that both NWS and FAA have responsibilities for assuring and controlling the quality of aviation weather observations, neither does so consistently. Specifically, neither NWS or FAA has developed performance measures and metrics, evaluated performance, and made improvements. Although some evaluations of services are done anecdotally and rated on a rough 0 through 4 scale, quantitative and objective performance measures such as timeliness, accuracy, and false alarm rates do not exist. I say this is surprising because NWS is clearly one of the better federal agencies when it comes to performance measurement, but NWS does not measure performance for weather products and services provided at en route centers. We therefore made recommendations to both the Secretary of Commerce and Transportation to direct the head of the Weather Service and FAA to develop performance measures and metrics, conduct evaluations of performance, and take the necessary action to improve performance. The set of requirements that FAA delivered in December have begun to define some of these performance measures, but additional work is needed here and baselines will need to be established to measure performance. Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Inglis, before summarizing, I'd like to thank you for your oversight of this important issue. Your inquiry into this has resulted in FAA better defining its needs from NWS to accomplish its mission, improvements in executive-level dialogue between FAA and NWS, and it has highlighted a critical area in our government that has not been effectively measured and improved, despite this arrangement being in operation for over 25 years. Going forward, it is essential that FAA and NWS work collaboratively to agree on future requirements, aggressively work to address them, agree on an operational model and a reasonable transition timeline, develop additional performance measures, establish baselines to measure performance, and aggressively measure and make improvements so that FAA has the information it needs to effectively manage air traffic. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my statement. I'd be pleased to respond to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Powner. Dr. Hayes, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Inglis, for the opportunity to testify on the National Weather Service provision of aviation weather information to the Federal Aviation Administration. The Weather Service has a critical role in providing weather information to the FAA in support of their mission to ensure safe and efficient operation of the national airspace system, and we're committed to providing quality aviation services. We provide warnings, forecasts, meteorological advice, and consultation throughout all phases of flight, including pre-flight, planning, and operations. These services come from many Weather Service offices, including our Weather Forecast offices, the Alaska Aviation Weather Office, the Volcanic Ash Advisory Centers, the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City, and Center Weather Service Units, or CWSUs for short. Let me focus on CWSUs. Weather Service forecasters at these units provide aviation advisories, forecasts, and advice to air traffic controllers. The CWSUs are located at each of 21 FAA air route traffic control centers. CWSUs operate 16 hours per day when air traffic is at its peak, and that's typically between 5 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. local time, 7 days a week. If weather conditions pose a threat to a center's area of responsibility, additional hours may be required, and we provide the necessary staff and service. In 2007, the Government Accounting Office reviewed aviation weather services provided to the FAA through our CWSUs. Its draft report provides a status of NWS plans for aviation weather services at FAA air route traffic control centers. The GAO report states that we do not have formal performance measures or a formal quality assurance program for our CWSU products and services. It's important to note that the Weather Service does monitor and evaluate aviation products and services. Though we agree with the GAO that there are shortfalls at our CWSUs, our program does include 2 Aviation Government Performance and Results Act GIPRA measures, one for ceiling and one for visibility forecast, both of which can have a primary impact on takeoff and landing operations. And we have other product and service quality metrics. We also have in place a subjective assessment of CWSU operations conducted by the local FAA Traffic Management Unit. These assessments are provided to FAA and Weather Service Management. Now, the GAO analysis also identified shortcomings and variability in some of the existing weather support for the FAA. Prior to the GAO's review, we were taking steps to improve CWSU products and services, and we had made good progress at our unit in Dallas-Fort Worth at the ARTCC, and we're using it as a model for where to take all CWSUs. We're also taking immediate action to address issues identified in the GAO report. We will implement changes in the coming year to improve CWSU services to the FAA. Some specific examples include formal site visits and new standardized weather service equipment and forecast applications, together with collaboration tools which will address product and service consistency shortfalls. We've already begun working to implement CWSU best practices at all CWSUs, and we're focused on improving consistency between the various aviation forecasts, warnings, and advisories. The GAO has made two recommendations to NOAA. First, assist the FAA in developing performance measures and metrics for products and services to be provided by Center Weather Service units. Second, perform annual evaluations of aviation weather services provided to en route centers and provide feedback to Center Weather Service units. We agree with these recommendations. Though we have measures and metrics to assess aviation products and services, we think the improvements which the GAO recommends will improve CWSU products and services, and we're currently working with the FAA to develop additional performance measures and metrics and to improve our annual evaluation of aviation weather services at the weather service units. On January 10, 2008, the FAA submitted to the Weather Service specific requirements for CWSU support. I chartered a team to develop solutions to meet the FAA requirements, and we're conducting a comprehensive analysis. As part of this process, we have an ongoing dialogue with the FAA at various levels to ensure we're correctly interpreting their requirements and to ensure that our response is optimally focused on meeting the aviation need. The Weather Service response is due to the FAA by May 7, 2008, and the FAA has promised us they'll reply by August 7, 2008. In addition to looking at the future of our roles and services at CWSUs, NOAA, through the Weather Service, is also actively engaged in the Next Generation Air Transportation System, NextGen for short. We participate on the Joint Planning and Development Office Board and provide leadership for the Weather Working Group. We recognize that NextGen will result in a system-wide transformation. This includes the manner by which weather-related information is collected, managed, disseminated, and used in decision-making. We also recognize the need for close coordination within the federal weather community to meet the next-gen weather support needs. NOAA is committed to a long-term partnership with the FAA and the rest of the federal community to make this happen. To support the the support NWS provides helps FAA create a national airspace system that is safe, efficient, and cost-effective for the people of this country. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Mr. Juba, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lamson and Congressman Inglis. My name is Eugene Juba, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Finance for the at the ATO, the Air Traffic Organization, part of the FAA. I spent the past 20 years in the aviation industry, first with the airlines, and now my position here at the FAA. Pleased to be here today to discuss the findings and recommendations of the GAO regarding FAA's provision of aviation and weather services from the National Weather Service. The Federal Aviation Administration is responsible for ensuring safe, orderly, and efficient air travel in the national airspace system. We safely guide over 50,000 aircraft per day through the nation's skies. The FAA and NWS have worked together for many years to provide weather forecast services for pilots, controllers, and all users of the nation's airspace. The National Weather Service began providing aviation meteorologists at the FAA's en route centers following the NTSB's report on the crash in 1977 of Southern Airways Flight number 242. The FAA, with the assistance of the NWS, created the Central Weather Service Units, or CWSUs, that are located at each of the FAA's 21 en route centers. In recent years, FAA has taken action to assess and improve the performance of the Center Weather Service units. FAA found that the CWSUs were not providing the same level of services at all its locations, and that the services and forecasts were not standardized across the 21 centers. There was also little collaboration or communication between the CWSUs at each. Neither the FAA nor the NWS had a formal quality assurance program for weather products and services. To address these concerns, the FAA requested the NWS restructure its aviation weather services to improve the capabilities and delivery of weather information, and to transform the current collection of isolated units to a national program for support of all FAA field units or field sites. The NWS submitted its restructuring proposal to the FAA in October 2006. In addition to the weather service effort, the FAA conducted a market survey to determine private sector capabilities in delivering those weather services needed by its controllers. 10 organizations, including a government laboratory, responded to that survey. The FAA reviewed both the NWS proposal and the results of the market survey. Based on that review, the FAA chose to refine its requirements for the CWSU service. We completed this exercise and provided new requirements to the Weather Service last month. The performance-based requirements suggest a new approach as to how weather services are generated and delivered. The requirements address deficiencies the FAA has identified in the CWSU service, such as a fragmented approach to aviation weather forecasting. We've requested that forecasts across regional boundaries be more consistent, and that more attention and resources be devoted to areas where active weather conditions exist, and less to where weather is of less impact on aviation. The requirements also request that NWS provide services on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week basis, rather than the current 16 hours per day. We must evolve our delivery of weather information to support the next generation air traffic system. These requirements set us on that path. We thank the GAO and their careful analysis and positive recommendations. The FAA agrees with their recommendations, and in building the requirements for the CWSU service, has added a component for performance evaluation. We are asking for a set of negotiated performance metrics to manage aviation weather services being provided. Oversight will be done jointly between the FAA and the National Weather Service. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, the FAA and the Weather Service are doing their utmost to provide or to improve the CWSU service. FAA has continuously held meetings with the Weather Service throughout the requirements development phase, and continues to hold biweekly meetings during the proposal development process to ensure that the NWS has provided sufficient information and the opportunity to develop an improved service. The FAA looks forward to the NWS's future concept of operations for the Center Weather Service units and hopes to continue our cooperative relation well into the future to reduce the impact weather has on aviation. We also welcome Congress's advice and counsel as we work with the National Weather Service to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the Center Weather Service unit services. This concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Juba. We'll now entertain questions from the panel of members, and I will, Chairman, recognize myself for the first 5 minutes. Start, Mr. Powner, with you and ask you to how you would characterize the relationship between the FAA and the National Weather Service in the context of this program. It just seems to me that the problem here is attributable to poor communication between the two agencies. Would improvement in this area help to move this program in the right direction?
Clearly, what I would characterize it with one word: improving. I think historically the collaboration, coordination between the two agencies, at the working level there may have been a lot going on, but clearly at the executive level it's improving. And that's a good thing to move forward, that We clearly understand the requirements going forward. We have agreement on that, and we also have agreement on how we're going to measure it to constantly improve these services.
There are a lot of issues. Are the steps that are being taken to address the issues between the FAA and WA, are they reasonable steps?
I believe the delivery of the requirements was a very positive step at the conclusion of our review. You know, going forward, now there's some hard work ahead of us to get agreement on that, to establish additional measures, to establish clear baselines, and then to actually implement this. So yes, right now we're moving in the right direction, but there's clearly a lot of work ahead.
FAA's testimony refers to several studies that they did to evaluate CWSUs, yet your report indicates that FAA had never specified requirements for the services to be delivered to them, and neither FAA nor NWS had any system to evaluate the performance of the CSWUs. Would you elaborate on that apparent discrepancy?
Well, clearly, FAA has studied the situation, and it's been widely acknowledged here on this panel that the services have been, you know, inconsistent, not standardized. We've heard that clearly there were some en route centers that they were more pleased with than others with the services. And the requirements to date have not been specified to the level that have recently been delivered. And I think with that specificity comes, you know, improvement in an understanding of what needs to be delivered, and ultimately, hopefully, an improvement in the services that NWS provides.
Thank you. Dr. Hayes, what are your plans for responding to FAA's new requirements?
Well, as I mentioned in my testimony, I formed a team, and there are three scenarios that they would like us to propose to involving how we would meet their requirements, and they've been very detailed in their requirements. And so I have a team, and there are three subsets of that team, each one focused on optimizing products and services in support of aviation for that particular scenario. And then there's crosstalk between the teams. As Mr. Juba has mentioned, there's been an ongoing dialogue between my team and the FAA. In fact, within the next week, they're going to go over, because I've just seen a rough draft of the proposal. We're going to run the proposal by them within the next I would say week to 10 days, in time to get feedback that if we're in the wrong operating quadrant, if we're missing the mark, then we have time to recover. And we intend to meet the date that they've given us which is May 7th. So I think there's a good dialogue going on at the worker level. I've also, at my level, been talking with Mr. Juba, with Ms. Cox, who's the Vice President for Flight Operations. I have on my March calendar Mr. San Martino, who's the VP for Systems Operations. So I'm going to engage at all levels, from my level on down to the people on the team. And Congressman, I'm hoping that will meet the need.
How can you better ensure consistency among aviation weather products and services provided by the Center Weather Service Units, weather forecast offices, and the Aviation Weather Center?
We have three initiatives going on at the present time. One of them is clearly what the GAO said, metrics. The FAA has a metric referred to as the Weather Impact Traffic Index. If you look at the output of that metric, it tells us when we are over forecasting for an air route or under forecasting. That we're going to use as the basis. So we have an ongoing effort to develop a standardized metric within the Weather Service of our products and services that relates directly to what the FAA is using to measure what its air route traffic controllers do. That's one. There will be other metrics that we will incorporate that are product related from our center units. We also are going to implement by the end of the year a field visit program, and it's not going to be a subjective one. We're going to have somebody from the FAA on the team. We'll have somebody from my headquarters. We will ensure that there's a report written with findings and recommendations, and that will come to senior leadership of the Weather Service. And then the last thing that I will tell you is I'm aware of the feedback we get on the operation at Dallas-Fort Worth. The FAA tells me this is a top-tier operation, and they've told me that there are others that aren't so good. And so what I have done, if I've been out to Dallas-Fort Worth, seen the operation, my deputy's been out there, and I've sent one of my regional directors out there to see it, and we are going to focus on another ARTCC, and how I can migrate some of those best practices right into that, and then we're going to broaden them across the Weather Service. So I think, in my mind, that will take a big bite out of the consistency program. There are other measures that we have in mind as well.
Figure out what they're doing right, bottle it.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm going to stop for just a minute and recognize Mr. Inglis for his questions, and I'll come back with a few others.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Hayes, are there other customers of National Weather Service that want information delivered in a different way? Is that such that, or is FAA a major customer of National Weather Service?
Sir, I would say FAA is a major customer of the Weather Service. We have emergency managers that want information, and our mission is to protect life and property, and so we take it very seriously, and we listen to them. And so my aim is to do the same to another very important customer of the Weather Service, and that's the FAA.
Is it that the organizations, it sounds like this may be relatively recent, we've been talking about exactly how to deliver it the way that FAA wants it. Is that a new thing, or has that been an ongoing conversation?
I think it's been ongoing, and I think to a certain extent senior leadership in the Weather Service bears some responsibility for not hearing what the FAA is saying, and I think there's no way to candy coat that. I think it's important to recognize that, and then just to focus on doing a better job listening and dialoguing, and that's what I hope to do at an executive level.
Yeah, because I wonder if, was shipping, for example, something that the way that the National Weather Service delivers it more designed for shipping interest, or for...
No, sir, I think if there are differences, what we did when we created the Center Weather Service units, we in an effort to ensure customer responsiveness to the FAA and the ARTCCs, we integrated the IT that does the delivery into their architecture. We have a separate Weather Service architecture that we use for the public, and while we take a great effort to ensure consistency, there are differences because you have two different architectures that are going to occur. It is our intent to work with the FAA to make sure that where there are differences, there are good reasons, and where there are differences, they do not have any significance to the quality of the products and services we provide.
Mr. Juba, could you go somewhere else to get weather? Contract with somebody else besides the National Weather Service?
Well, I just look at our weather portfolio today. We actually get weather information from a number of different people and services out there. Obviously, the National Weather Service is an important part of that. But today we have weather sensing equipment. We have what we call the automated our ASOSs, which are equipment at airports that give us information on ceiling height and temperature. Those are maintained, some are maintained by us, some are maintained by the Weather Service, some are actually maintained by the DOD. We have contract weather observers at some of the airports, which are small businesses that supplement that service. So there are a number of different areas where we can get weather information. When we did the market survey last year, too, there was we did get 10 people, including one government laboratory, that was actually interested in, or that had the capability, felt they had the capability to provide that service. Having said all that, we're on the CWSU specifically. We're working with National Weather Service today, and hopefully we'll get delivery of information in a manner that meets both of our needs.
And if it doesn't, do you have statutory authority to go deal with somebody else? Is that, or do you? And the second part of that question, do you pay National Weather Service, or does money move from FAA to National Weather Service?
Yeah. Well, answer the latter question. We pay the National Weather Service about $12 million a year for the Center Weather Service units. On the first part, we're optimistic of getting to an agreement with Weather Service on how to evolve the CWSUs. What makes me optimistic is I look at another important thing we're doing within the agency, which is looking to the next generation concept of operations. There's a working group there, the Weather Working Group, of which the Weather Service, ourselves, DOD, and some other agencies actually sit on there. So we're actually getting a common view of where we want to take weather information collection, generation, dissemination. So we have that goal we're looking to get to in 5, 10, 15 years. That's part of why we put together our new requirements, because we need to head toward that goal. So it makes me optimistic, because the Weather Service has the same goal. I mean, we're on the same. Again, I'm optimistic that we'll get there.
Powner, do you share the optimism that the deadline will be met?
The 120, the May deadline
Yeah.
that we're referring to. Well, if Dr. Hayes says he'll meet the date, then I assume he'll meet the date. I mean, there's a lot that Weather Service has done and has stepped up since the time our report came out and time of this hearing. And I've been impressed with the actions to date. So, yeah, I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but I'm hopeful that he hits the date.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. And Dr. Hayes, if the AAA considered outsourcing the weather services NWS provides, do you think these services can be achieved either at a comparable level or better than the National Weather Service products and service? And can you make it, and could it be made to be more cost efficient?
Congressman, I'm going to give you a biased answer. The government has given us the mission responsibility to provide aviation services to the FAA. And if weather forecasts and warnings have the potential to impact public safety, we think we need to be involved. And I intend to show with our actions that we can do better than what they could do elsewhere. I will say, and I guess I would just leave it at that, sir.
Well, let me take it back and talk one for just a second. Cost efficiency. And the first question that comes to mind, if they're going to provide essentially the same service as what your service is providing, can it be done for the same cost? Would it be more cost efficient to have a private entity to do it as opposed to a public entity?
That's a difficult question to answer in the fact that I don't know of a private sector company out there that can do everything we do. We do everything from the observing, that's the balloons we launch every 12 hours, to the model runs, processing of the data on high-performance computing systems. And so if they were to take on that entire mission, there's no way that I believe that they could. I believe that we've shown with our support to emergency managers that we are the most effective supplier of that information, and I think we can do the same thing for the FAA far more efficiently than can be done in the private sector.
Thank you. Mr. Juba, do you want to comment on that?
I guess it would be premature for me to comment before we see the proposal put together by. They are looking at, they're taking a hard look at how they provide the service. And you get back to the expertise. It's not a question of weather expertise. We believe the Weather Service has that. I think what we're looking at is are we using technology to the furthest advantage to deliver weather information? This is CWSUs have been in place for a number of years, and technology has evolved over that time. We saw that through our market survey, and I think with use of that upgrading technology and increasing those capabilities, I think the Weather Service can get to.
Is it your plan to seek Weather Service support for the Center Weather Service units from outside sources? Will you all go forward with your request?
Right now, we're talking solely with the Weather Service on that. We provide the requirements that we put together. That we provided them last month. It only went to the Weather Service.
What are your time frames for? Let me go back. The CWSU's arrangement has been in place for some 2 decades, or I guess over 2 decades. Why haven't you implemented performance measures for these weather services before now?
I think, Congressman, I should answer that because there are units. And I would say that We did have metrics that evaluated our primary products and services. They were being produced outside the CWSUs, and the primary focus of the CWSUs originally was decision assistance, and it was taking products produced elsewhere and conveying those to controllers in the FAA. We've evolved the mission. There's production going on at CWSUs, and I say that we need to develop those measures now, and we will.
Mr. Juba, how do you plan to evaluate the proposals that NWS will submit?
Well, one of the things, I mean, we noted earlier the deficiencies we saw with the service being delivered today. So we were looking at how the weather service is changed, what they do with the CWSUs in those specific areas. Those areas being, fragmented approach, the inconsistency across regional lines, one en route center versus another, having, two different forecasts were conflicting. We need that standard product, that nationwide look at how weather information is delivered, a consistent product. So we'll be looking in those areas. We have the expertise, within the FAA that deals with our traffic management units that are actually the customers of that service that will be involved in the evaluation of the proposal. Plus, we are advantaged also to have, having done the market survey a year ago, we know what's out there in the market and what the capabilities are. We also, a year ago, did a prototype of remote delivery of weather information from a remote location to a customer organization or customer site. So we know that's available and that does work.
Mr. Juba, the requirements were produced after the survey went out, were they not? And if so, how can that be used to really make a good decision with
that's correct.
Services?
The survey was put out last year, and our new requirements came out last month. What was referred to on the survey is we through the survey gave us an idea on sort of what can be done, what capabilities are out there currently in the commercial world for delivery of weather information. So I mean it's a benchmark, if you will, on the possible. So that, I mean, there's not a it's not a price comparison or anything.
Both Dr. Hayes and Mr. Juba, the picture GAO paints of the past working relationship between your two organizations is not an attractive one. Your relationship appears to have been characterized by a lack of coordination and cooperation. And I believe you and your agencies are now moving in the right direction. The safety of the public and the effective management of our air traffic system are obviously our paramount concerns. So please fix the problem. FAA needs to define their needs and communicate them effectively to the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service needs to do a better job of ensuring consistency in service delivery and should be responsive to FAA's need for cost-effective, high-quality forecasting information. Both agencies should work together in a cooperative fashion to design and implement the high-quality aviation weather service or weather forecast system that we need. So would you care to comment? Both of you.
Sir, you have my strongest commitment to do what you just said, because that's what our intent is to do.
Thank you. Mr. Juba?
Yeah, we're committed also. We've worked with the Weather Service, again, developing our requirements and actually meet with them biweekly today as they put together their proposal. we're committed to working with them to.
Excellent. Now, I think we've developed such a feeling among the public, I think, that our bureaucracy is getting such to the point where we're not capable of providing services and that there's such a lack of communication. I was in a meeting this morning that had to do with the area from which I come in Texas, and the agency with whom the several members from our area were meeting said that it was the first time that they had seen a unified support for a project. And it's strange that we have to have comments made like that, that it's out of the ordinary for us to actually work together. It's been disheartening to me for a long period of time, but I see the opportunity for things to change. And with those kinds of commitments, we really can be responsive to the needs of our people, not responsive to the needs of the politics of some. And it'd be nice that when we can say that about everybody, and we quit playing some of the games that we seem to have been playing over time. Mr. Inglis, that's all I have to say. If you have.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Well, then, I certainly want to thank the panel and thank all of you for coming and appearing before our subcommittee. Under the rules of the committee, the record will be held open for 2 weeks for members to submit additional statements and any additional questions that they might have for the witnesses. If we have those, we will mail them to you. And with that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.